Imagine this. You poured hundreds of billions of dollars into Silicon Valley, bought the most expensive GPU, built the biggest training clusters, and hired the best researchers. You thought you were building the nuclear arsenal of the AI age. Then one day you wake up and discover that on the other side of the Pacific, someone has suddenly released a model that is approaching the same level. And it's free, open source, downloadable by anyone. That is the shock DeepSeek delivered. For many American tech companies, this doesn't even feel like competition. It feels more like this. Someone suddenly built a free 8-lane highway right next to your toll road. For the past few years, the AI industry has actually followed one very simple logic. Train giant models, hide the methods, wrap everything into an API, then charge the world an intelligence toll. That model isn't evil. In fact, it's extremely rational. Because the cost of training AI really is astonishingly high. One NVIDIA H100 GPU can cost nearly as much as a car. Training an advanced model can run into the billions of dollars. So the industry's default assumption became this: only the richest companies get to build the strongest AI. That is why OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google DeepMind increasingly look like cloud aristocrats in the AI world. Extremely capable and extremely expensive. Then DeepSeek showed up. And what really made Silicon Valley uneasy wasn't even whether it was smart enough. It was something else. Why is it this cheap? In early 2025, after DeepSeek R1 was released, the market went through a violent shock. NVIDIA lost nearly $600 billion in market value in a single day. That was not normal volatility. That was the market suddenly realizing, wait, what if AI no longer has to be that expensive? Because for the past few years, the entire AI industry has been built on one giant assumption. Stronger AI means more GPUs. More GPUs means more capital, and more capital means a higher barrier. But DeepSeek seems to be saying, maybe not. What's even more dangerous is that it isn't just cheap. It's open source. And open source AI is not quite the same thing as open source software in the old sense. Linux changed operating systems. Android changed the mobile ecosystem. But open source AI may change something even bigger, the distribution model of intelligence itself. If hundreds of thousands of developers around the world can download your model, deploy it themselves, fine-tune it themselves, modify it themselves, and distill it themselves, then your rate of expansion starts to outrun any sales team. You're no longer selling a product, you're distributing capability. And at that point, the logic of AI competition begins to change. The old question was, whose model is strongest? Now the question is becoming, whose ecosystem spreads the fastest? These are two completely different wars. Meta understood this early. That is why the strategy behind Llama was never just about being nice. It was about capturing the developer ecosystem. Because once developers get used to your model, your framework, and your tool chain, their future products will naturally be built inside your world. This is very similar to Android. Google did not make Android open source because it wanted to sell Android itself. It did it so the entire mobile internet would ultimately flow into its ecosystem. But DeepSeek is even more aggressive. It is not only open, it also emphasizes low cost. And that is the truly dangerous part. Because low-cost open source creates an incredibly powerful distribution effect, especially for startups. Most developers do not have some deep religious faith in AI. What they do have is deadlines. If a model is strong enough, cheap enough, and can even be deployed locally, they will not care what Wall Street thinks. They will just say, great, let's start building. And once that happens, the entire industry starts drifting toward a strange new reality. The model itself starts to look more and more like public infrastructure, like water, like electricity, like the internet, not like a luxury product. That is why DeepSeek's real impact may not be on OpenAI's technology at all. It may be on OpenAI's business model. Because if good enough AI starts spreading for free, then expensive APIs, closed access, and enterprise licenses all start to look awkward. They used to look like moats. Now sometimes they look more like overhead wearing a suit. And there is an even subtler layer here: geopolitics. For the past few years, the United States has tried to slow China's AI progress through GPU export controls. The core logic was simple: restrict the chips and you restrict the AI. But DeepSeek to some extent shook that logic, because it showed the world something important. Even under compute constraints, it may still be possible, through algorithmic optimization, engineering efficiency, and model architecture innovation, to approach the frontier. That is why both the US government and Silicon Valley are paying such close attention to DeepSeek, because this is no longer just business competition. It is starting to look more like a battle over who gets to shape the AI era's rules and influence. Of course, there is plenty of controversy here. Some people question whether DeepSeek's training costs have been underestimated. Others suspect it may have used more undisclosed resources. There are also debates about data sources, model distillation, and safety, so open source does not mean automatic victory. Historically, many open source projects have had enormous influence, but the companies that made the most money were often still the cloud platforms. So the real question is this: if AI eventually becomes as universal as Linux, who will make the most money in the future? Will it still be the model companies? Or will it be the people who control the chips, the people who control the cloud, the people who control the agent entry points? Because once intelligence starts spreading for free, the core value in the AI industry may shift away from owning the strongest model and towards something else entirely, toward who controls traffic, deployment, compute, platforms, and user entry points. And that may be DeepSeek's most far-reaching impact. It may not directly win AI, but it may already have changed the rules of the entire AI world.